I've personally switched to Claude for 90% of my AI usage, and in today's video, I'm going to explain exactly why. Over the past week alone, there's been a ton of new features shipped on Claude, which in my opinion, make it the best value and highest powered LLM in the market. But today, I want to simplify things for you and give you the beginner guide that I wish that I had when I first started using Claude 6 months ago. This is the first of a 3-part series where I teach you everything that you need to know about Claude. And along the way, I'm going to show you some hacks which unlock the full power of Claude, because there are a couple small things that you can do to make this an extremely powerful application involving how you set up your projects and how you set up the memory on Claude. And today I'm going to run you through all of it. So if you're new here on this channel, AI Edge, I'm your host, Miles Deutscher, and I've been in the AI space ever since ChatGPT first launched. And over the past year especially, I've gone absolutely AI crazy, setting up workflows across my business of 30 people, which powers my content engine, market research, and my personal operating system, which I talk about in other videos. But today we're going to focus on Claude. So firstly, where do I think Claude stands out versus the rest of the pack? Well, if you asked me a few months ago, I would have said it's the most creative LLM. It's the best for creative writing. It's pretty good for brainstorming, and it does a pretty good job of light vibe coding. But I do feel like over the past couple of months, the landscape has completely shifted with their shipping of Claude Cowork, a feature which allows you to edit local folders on your device, becoming your work companion, with the advancements in Claude Code, allowing you to pretty much build anything you want and bring any idea to life just by coding on the terminal, and also advancements in Claude Skills. And the memory functionality means it remembers how to do things and execute to a much higher level than it used to. So I still use ChatGPT sometimes. I think it's a pretty good strategist, but for 90% of other tasks, whether it's creative writing, whether it's coding, whether it's building interactive dashboards, I am finding myself using Claude, and I'm finding it doing a much better job. The way you have to think about Claude is less like a chatbot and more like a coworker that can actually assist you to do tasks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through the entire interface and show you each different section of Claude and how I use it. But firstly, I want to go through the tiers just so you get an understanding of whether you need to pay and what plan is optimal for your use case. So the first tier that you can access is the free tier. This is going to give you access to Claude Sonnet, which is a smart but slightly less smart model than the Opus model. You're going to be able to do basic chatting, coding, analysis, reviewing images and documents, but it does have soft daily usage caps. So you will hit limits quickly with heavy use. If you're a power user of AI, or if you're using this for work, which, to be honest, your business should be paying for anyway with where the AI world is going, then you're probably going to want to at least consider the Pro plan, which is $20 a month. Now, this gives you 5x the usage of the free tier, access to all models, which is really important because Opus 4.6 is an amazing model. It gives you projects for organizing work, which I'll show you later. This is something that I lean on a lot. It gives you research, also something that I lean on a lot, alongside Perplexity and Grok and GPT Pro. I think Claude's research really holds its own. It has Google Workspace integration, extended thinking, so it'll give you smarter answers, and Claude Code access. I would say straight off the bat that if you are really committing to becoming serious about AI, I think the Pro tier is the place to start. And then if you are noticing yourself running into rate limits, then you can upgrade to the Max tier, which gives you 5x Pro's usage limits, and it gives you a much bigger context window. This is especially going to be important if you are using Claude Code. If you are not coding, or if you are not using agents for, let's say, web scraping and deep research, then Pro is likely going to be enough, with the occasional rate limit. Now, personally, because I'm absolutely AI crazy and I do a lot of coding, especially on the go, I'm on the Max plan, which has 20x Pro's usage limits. And this is really built for people that live in Claude all day, like me and my team, where you can do heavy coding, long research sessions, and multi-file projects. Even sometimes you do run into limits at this tier, but that is if you're going absolutely crazy. So I do think for most people, Pro is going to be the place to start. If you run into limits, upgrade to Max. If you're still running into limits, upgrade to the $200 plan, but you would have to be a really serious user to run into those limits. But I think the biggest jump that you get in advancement is between the free subscription and the Pro. subscription. And then of course, Claude has their enterprise pricing. We know they've been working with big companies like Goldman Sachs on agentic integration. Recently, they actually launched co-work for small businesses, which you can already tap into now without enterprise pricing. And I think that has now enabled small businesses to get some of the same features that the big companies have already been using for the last few months, which is really, really cool. So let's quickly run through the interface. So you can use the web application. Of course, there is a mobile app as well. I personally like the desktop app, specifically for Mac, because I feel like it's more optimized, but the other applications are great as well if you are on the go. The one thing that the Mac application doesn't have that I really like on the phone is the ability to transcribe from your voice. Now, of course, you can get around this with Apple's dictation, but it isn't as good as the phone application. Claude, it's something I really want you to add to the desktop app because it's something that GPT has had for a while now. So that would be great. I'm sure they'll add it, but that is a distinction I wanted to make. But for the purpose of this video, I am going to be on the desktop app. The desktop app also gives you access to the inbuilt co-work and code tabs, which connect to your terminal, which are also quite important for the way that I use Claude. Now, in future videos, I'm going to be doing more advanced code and co-work tutorials. This is a bit more of a basic overview, but I'll still include a brief overview of what these can do to give you a bit of an idea. Of course, just like GPT, you've got all your chats on the left. And what I use a lot is the projects file here. So if you click into projects file, and I'll show you a bit more about this later, you can actually set up individual projects where a lot of your data can live. So I have a strategic business or an executive project. I have an AI Edge project for this channel that you're watching now and the media company behind that. I have a lifestyle and personal project for lifestyle, personal content and other things. And then I have a crypto research and a crypto content project as well. And then within each project, I have individual chats, which I have optimized with memory that I update, instructions that I update, and context for each specific chat that I update. This way, each project has all the data you need within it. And if you add more chats within this project, it's going to remember all the data. And Claude actually just expanded their memory window. So now Claude can read across a multitude of chats, your data, and store your data. And this memory upgrade, I haven't been able to push it to the real limits, but I have already noticed a little bit that the memory is better and would likely make it better than ChatGPT and a lot of their competitors. So if you've used Claude or GPT in the past and been a bit annoyed that, okay, you start a new chat and it just doesn't remember what you said in other chats, then this is actually going to solve that with the new feature that shipped over the last few days. And then you have more advanced things like the customize tool, which enables you to download plugins, and you can also create your own custom skills. And then you have artifacts as well that you can add, which are essentially like custom skills, for example, writing editor, brainstorm, idea generator. And these are all specific artifacts that you can utilize for specific use cases, which we'll get into later. But now I want to get into how you should actually prompt Claude, because I still see a lot of people getting this wrong. And there are a couple really small tweaks you can make to get the best possible answers out of Claude. So what I've actually done is I've created an example of a master prompt, which this structure has actually been vetted by people within Anthropic who created Claude. So this is the exact way that you can extract the best responses out of Claude, because remember, LLMs outputs are only as good as the inputs that you give them. And all of the prompts that I'm speaking about today are going to be available for you in a free prompt pack. If you use the link in the description, you can click there and get access to it. So the first thing that comprises a good prompt is you want to set the stage. For example, I am a freelance copywriter. I am a startup founder. Then you want to say what you're working on. For example, a pitch deck, a blog post. Then you want to detail the audience or end user. This is for investors, this is for me, this is for my boss, and you want to be as specific as possible. The more it knows about you, the better. And this also goes into how you actually set up your project. So something I recommend is actually creating an MVP or a one-page document, which has all of the details about you, your business, your objectives, and actually putting that into a project file. And this is actually what I've done across my projects. I won't click in and reveal all the details because I actually use this, but I've actually put in a one-page document for each of my projects, which means that its answers are always tailored based on my goals. So, if your goal is to be a credible content creator that puts authority first, and then you ask for a bunch of content ideas, it's not going to start throwing you clickbait titles because it knows your objectives. That can make things even better going forward and means you don't need to keep repeating yourself in a prompt like this. But going back to the prompt example, firstly, you want to set the stage. Then you want to define the task, so exactly what you want it to do. Then you want to specify the rules. I do find this is an important thing for LLMs, like telling it give me a concise answer, give me dot points, give me something short, something long. This can help it make it a bit more digestible for you. Otherwise, it can kind of just go off and give you a format that you don't want. And the most important part, in my opinion, is asking it to ask you questions to help you. So a lot of the time people just will say, give me strategy on a business decision. I want to do this and my coworker wants to do that. And it's black and white. Whereas if you say, this is the business decision I have, but I want you to ask me more questions to understand the situation even better, before it even fires off an answer, it'll ask you questions which you can then respond to. Now, if you're on the Claude mobile app or if you have dictation, you can actually just respond through your voice, which is an even easier way to do it. Or of course, you can type in your answer. And for any big strategic prompt, that is something that I will personally do. I will always get it to ask me questions because I find the responses are just so much better. One thing Claude is really good at is analyzing documents. For example, I put in the dot points that I created to record this very video. I'm going to ask it to review these points for a YouTube video and suggest improvements. So it's basically going to go through and review it now. So its ability to read PDFs, images, documents is really strong. I know most LLMs are pretty good at this, but I do find Opus is actually one of the best models at this. And the other area that I think Claude excels versus other LLMs is the way that it writes, especially for script writing and just in terms of interfacing with the LLM itself. It just feels a little bit more human, the way that they've been able to architect the responses. And that is something I think a lot of people value when it comes to Claude. And that's why you see a lot of chatbots utilizing Claude's models. That's why a lot of people that use OpenClaw, which is the 24/7 assistant, you might have been seeing people buy Mac Minis for. A lot of them use Opus because it's just really good to interface with. Now, we've gone through basic chatting, but if you click this plus button here, here's where more functionality opens up. So if you have web search ticked, which is often done by default, it's going to utilize the web to help you with responses. If you click research, it's going to go even deeper. So when you want to research something, for example, I want to research all the layoffs over the past week in the tech space and summarize into a document. It's going to do deep research, which can even take 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And you can see it researching here. And then it's going to come back to me with a report. It'll ping me and give me a notification when it's ready. This is something I use Claude a lot for. GPT Pro is also good at this, by the way, but Claude is just a little bit faster. It's sometimes less thorough. So what I will do is I will sometimes, for more advanced tasks, run them both simultaneously. I'll do a future video on this, but Perplexity Computer actually allows you to stack multiple models. So you can use Claude and you can use GPT at the same time, which I think is really, really cool. And one underrated functionality is actually the connectors. If you click connectors and click manage connectors, you can connect it to your Gmail, Google Calendar, or Google Drive. So then it can actually pull things for you. So it can view your emails, it can view your calendar, it can view or pull files from your Google Drive. So then you don't need to keep getting documents and loading them in. That is a really cool thing that, bit of a pro tip here, and this is something that you can do, is you can create an executive assistant, hook it up, and then have a lot of the data feeding to the chats. Even more pro tip, which I'll also speak about in a future video because it's more advanced, is on Claude Cowork. It can actually access local folders. So you can put some of this data in a folder locally and you can have it editing that folder. So it can edit spreadsheets. It can take that information and use it to feed, for example, a vibe coding session. So something I did is I built a personal operating system with my entire business, my task prioritization, my finances, and I actually feed it the data from Cowork and then it automatically uploads. And you can go even deeper from that, and you can obviously start plugging in APIs from Google Sheets and the more advanced stuff, which we get into on the channel. But the great thing about Claude is sky's the limit. It's great for beginners because it's super accessible and it's nice to interface with. And then it's amazing for more advanced users because it has some of the best coding and advanced integrations of any LLM. And recently they just shipped their new Claude skills, which are basically integrated with every single major application, allowing you to create skills for your employees across Slack, Notion, and a lot of other applications as well, which I think is going to be a game changer for a lot of small businesses. Now, I want to talk about, for the average person, not from a business perspective, what the highest leverage thing you can do on Claude is. And by far, it's what I said before, utilizing projects. So I'll actually show you how to start a new project. And keep in mind, this is only on the $20 plan and above. So click on projects, click on new project, then name what you're working on. So I'm going to say EA. Now what you want to do is you want to describe your project goals and what you're using it for. So for example, you might be using this project, and think of projects as folders because that's basically what they are. You might be using this as your ultimate personal assistant. So you can then go into another chat, and it can even be on ChatGPT, but if you just have one subscription, you can just create a brand new Claude chat and you can ask it to ask you questions, and thus through your answers, reverse engineer the ideal description on your behalf. So I'm not gonna do it now because it will take too long for the purpose of this video, but I'm just gonna write, be my executive strategic assistant. But obviously, if you go through the process of, in another chat, brainstorming what you would like your assistant to do, then you can copy and paste that into here and it will always have the context. So any chat underneath this project is going to do exactly what you ask this folder to do. Then what you can do, which I think is super cool, is upload files. So you can put in a document. As I said before, you could create a one-pager. And I think no matter what LLM you're using, if you want to stick to ChatGPT, cool, do this anyway. Create a one-pager with the details on yourself, your business, your objectives, your pain points, your goals, and what you want to use AI for. Get a one-page document. It can even be more. Some of mine are 36 pages or something stupid. And then you can actually put the files in, and then it will always have the context of A, what this chat is going to be, so your executive assistant, and B, what you actually want to use AI for and the context of who you are. And then the memory, which will show here after a few chats and you can view it, will just stack over time. So instead of switching from chat to chat or LLM to LLM, try and do all your executive discussions under the one folder so you can create new chats here. So I might say create chat for brainstorming, and then I might go back so I can click on the EA folder, or I can click the back button and I could say create chat for day-to-day ops. So what I like to do, and I'm a little bit OCD with this stuff, is set up my folders so everything is clearly differentiated. So you go into your project section, you go into your executive assistant folder, and then you click on specific chats. So if it's something regarding daily operations, I click here. If it's something regarding strategic brainstorming, I click here, and it has all the memory and files in the context of what you're doing. Then within each of these chats, that's where you want to connect things like Claude skills, for example. So your Claude skills are trained to do specific tasks. For example, in the daily operations chat, something you might do on a regular basis is do a daily review of all your tasks. You might want this done in a specific way. For example, you might want your top 5 tasks laid out and the top 3 things that you're avoiding for the next day, for example. And you can actually create a skill. So every single time you do this, it calls on the skill. So you're not saying it every time, like give me my top 5 and my top 3. Like it'll already know how to do it. So then when you say use the /skill to create my daily brief, it'll already be trained on exactly how to do that. And to create a skill, it's really simple as doing this. You just say, hey, I'd like to create a skill for XYZ. You can just say, help me do this, and it will help you create the skill. It'll create it, you can name it, and then you can call on it in the future. Think of it like, if you're a gamer and you used, / a command, it's the exact same thing. It's just / whatever the skill is, and then ask it to do something and it will automatically call on it. So I'll get into the more advanced stuff in a future video, but I think the most important thing that you could take away from this video is creating projects and being a bit diligent and OCD with how you store your memory. And Claude's very good with the latest update doing that, by the way, but having it set up like this properly with files and instructions, it's going to completely change the game for you using Claude. And although GPT does also have projects, I just feel like the addition of Claude Cowork, Claude Skills, Claude Code, and what I'm about to speak about, which is probably the most impressive thing about Claude, is just an absolute game changer. So this is why I love Claude over ChatGPT. This is one of the things that I find absolutely amazing. It's artifacts. Now, what are artifacts? These are visual representations of data that pop up within the app, and then you can actually export them to become websites. Now, I've created so many of these over my time, but let me create one on the fly for you to give you an example. Create a dashboard for my finances. Use pie chart / graphs to represent changes in net worth over time. Keep it simple. Base it on a fictional, because I won't give the real data in this example, $100,000 portfolio. And I'm just going to say goal here is to show the YouTube audience how great Claude is. And I'm misspelling because I don't have autocorrect on, but it's okay. enter. It'll know, it's smart. So now what it's gonna do is it's gonna create an artifact, and this is not vibe coding. So I wanna make a distinction here. You can use the chats to vibe code stuff technically. So you can create interfaces, websites, functional workflows. I've created landing pages, funnels, etc. You can create websites, all sorts of stuff just through the chat. If you want to technically vibe code or technically use Claude Code, there is a toggle up here called Code. If you click on that, it will actually be able to access folders on your computer. You can also install Claude Code to your local terminal as well, but you can use this and it'll walk you through it. And then this can actually edit local folders. So technically, you need to click on Code or use the terminal if you want to use Claude Code. But if you want to build basic stuff, and I feel like a lot of stuff can actually just be done on the artifacts feature, you can just use a normal chat. So you can feel like a programmer or a website designer just by using the normal chat. And this, I think, ultimately, combined with its slightly improved creative writing and better memory, I think this is ultimately why I prefer Claude over ChatGPT. It's the ability to spin up visual representations of data, which I think is so impactful because, I mean, sky's the limit. You can build a habit tracker, which I did a video on. You can build a personal operating system. You can get it to augment your finances in a way that you want to see them versus, other applications where you don't have flexibility. Okay, we can see it's just pulled up now. It's created a financial dashboard. It literally did this in 10 seconds. But it's showing me my net worth over time, my monthly income, my savings rate, my net worth, my income versus expenses for each month, my top holdings. And I built this in a second. Imagine if you spent a day and actually had it automatically iterating on your behalf, like what you could build here. And I've actually done this with real data, and I've connected APIs to have everything automatically updating. You can now do that on Claude with no coding experience. And this is just on the basic chat function. If you actually use the code function, it's even better. So artifacts are amazing. Test them out. It's pretty mind-blowing, and it's probably the most impactful thing of Claude. And then the last toggle here that I want to talk about is Claude Cowork. I'll do a dedicated video on this, but this enables you to work within a specific folder. So you can ask it to do a variety of tasks like organize my screenshots, optimize my week, find insights in files. You give it 20 files for a company you're analyzing, and you can get it to analyze all of those files in a local folder and create a spreadsheet with a P&L and a PE ratio analysis to justify a particular investment. And you can do that all within one folder. So the way to think about Cowork is it autonomously can work on a folder on your computer, so you don't need to prompt it to do individual things. You can just prompt it to do a task, and in the background, it'll just be editing and making changes to that folder while you do other stuff. It's basically the better version of OpenClaw for the average person. So if you haven't heard of OpenClaw, it's basically an application which enables you to access your entire desktop with any AI agent that you want, whereas Cowork operates in one folder. But I think for a lot of people, with the average use case for most people, Cowork is actually a better option. And it's something that I've found myself even defaulting to for a lot of use cases because it is more secure. And you can also combine workflows. For example, you can vibe code, but you can also create workarounds to automate a lot of agentic stuff on Perplexity Computer, on Manus, or even through Claude Code itself. Future video for that. There's just so much to do in AI, so I'm trying to simplify things today, but lots of future videos for those who are interested in this content. And really the ethos of this channel is to share my workflows with you. So as I build stuff, I'm going to share it with you. So my personal OS, we're doing a video on. My OpenClaw setup, I'm doing a video on. And I'll just show you guys what I'm building, teach you what I've learned along the way, and hopefully through that, you're going to become a lot better at AI and be able to leverage this stuff in your life as well. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the model. And I think this is important, especially if you are weighing up the pricing decision. What is each model good for? So Opus 6 is what I will typically use. It's the most capable model. It's the most advanced model, and it's one of the best models in the world. But Sonnet is very good. Sonnet 4.6 in many benchmarks actually matches Opus. I think it's some benchmarks that even beat Opus. Overall, it's still not as good, but it is faster. It's more cost efficient. And it's still going to be great for those on the free plan. You'll just run into some rate limits. I think if you are budget conscious, Sonnet is going to do a great job for you. But obviously, if you're on the $20 plan, you can use Opus. If you are running into a situation where you can't afford to upgrade to the next plan, which is $100, but you still want to leverage Opus, then what you can do is actually split your usage. For any chatting, use Sonnet. For anything a bit more advanced where you want a real strategic thinker or vibe coding, you can use Opus, and you can run the two alongside each other. And then you've got Claude Haiku. It's not my preferred model. To be honest, I rarely use it, but I thought it was worth, so it's the fastest model. It's available on the free tier. It's available out of the box. But I personally will stick to Opus and use Sonnet a little bit where cost becomes a consideration. For example, when I use OpenClaw, cost is a consideration because it's calling so much data through the API. But I think for the average person, if you can use Opus and default to Sonnet for chatting and things like that, where you can burn through usage if you're trying to preserve usage a little bit. So that is my rundown of Claude, emphasizing the need to use projects, running you guys through the chat function, co-work function, and Claude Code function, how I use it, how I set it up. But obviously, we can go into much more depth on Claude skills, Claude code. Sky's the limit with this stuff, but I wanted to get out more of a beginner to intermediate tutorial today, and then we'll do a more advanced tutorial as part of this series later. So make sure to subscribe if you're interested in this content. I will leave all of the prompts that I used today and some additional information available for free in a prompt pack below if you do want to claim that, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Peace out.